and welcome. You are watching Eagle News America. I'm Philip Toledo coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. It's Tuesday, January 12, 2020, and 2021. And as always, tonight we have updates from several of our correspondents across North America. Jane Kathleen Gregorio in Corpus Christi, Texas.
President Trump travels to the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas in first public appearance since Capitol unrest.
Thomas Likeness in Edmonton, Alberta.
The stay-at-home order goes into effect Thursday in Canada's largest province.
E.J. Gonzalez in Alexandria, Virginia.
Virginia ramps up COVID-19 vaccinations with a new plan.
Then Carlo Valdez in Union Township reports about key points of New Jersey Governor Murphy's State of the State speech. Then Nicole Adeline Padilla in Baton Rouge tells us about the Louisiana Health Department reporting its highest daily death count since the start of the pandemic, and the recent snow creating a winter wonderland for Louisiana state parks. Then Angel Membrere in Sacramento reports about California regions remaining on stay-at-home order and California reaching 30,000 COVID-19 related deaths. Then in technology news, we'll turn to Alex Skillman in North Hills, California.
Los Angeles passes its goal by establishing 11,000 electric vehicle charging sites.
Plus, for EBC Sports, Michael Hudson reports about Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin feeling optimistic at the possible return of an NBA team to the city. And for tonight's virtual roundtable, National Hobby Month, indulging in our favorite pastimes. Our coverage begins now. U.S. officials said Tuesday hundreds of people are facing arrest in connection with last week's storming of the U.S. Capitol by supporters of President Donald Trump, and some could be charged with sedition and conspiracy. Michael Sherwin, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, told the press conference there are already over 70 cases charged, and that number, he says, is going to grow into the hundreds. Let's take a look.
Significant felony cases tied to sedition and conspiracy. Just yesterday, our office organized a strike force of very senior national security prosecutors and public corruption prosecutors. Their only marching orders from me are to build seditious and conspiracy charges related to the most heinous acts that occurred in the Capitol. And these are significant charges that have felonies with prison terms of up to 20 years.
Stephen D'Antuono, acting director of the Washington field office of the FBI, said the Bureau has opened over 160 case files so far. He also said that's just the tip of the iceberg. He said the brutality of the American people watched with shock and disbelief on January 6 will not be tolerated by the FBI. The men and women of the FBI will leave no stone unturned in this investigation. Sherwin said the authorities would also bring assault and battery charges for attacks on police officers, one of whom was killed. He said they were seeking information about who placed pipe bombs at the headquarters of the Democratic and Republican parties. Both bombs were defused. The FBI official was asked what intelligence law enforcement had ahead of the storming of the Capitol. D'Antuono said that the department developed some intelligence that a number of individuals were planning to travel to the D.C. area with intentions to cause violence, and that information has been immediately shared. The FBI official noted that a leader of the right-wing Proud Boys was arrested the night before the rally and said other individuals were identified in other parts of the country and their travel subsequently disrupted. Senior Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney announced Tuesday that she planned to vote to impeach President Donald Trump after the ransacking of the U.S. Capitol by his supporters. Ahead of the expected vote in the House of Representatives on Wednesday, Cheney said of her fellow Republican, quote, "I will vote to impeach the president. This insurrection caused injury, death, and destruction in the most sacred space in our republic." Cheney is the third most senior Republican in the House. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump on Tuesday called preparations to impeach him in U.S. Congress absolutely ridiculous and said they were causing, quote, tremendous anger. Trump, speaking as he boarded Marine One at the White House for a trip to Texas, called his likely impeachment in the House of Representatives on Wednesday a continuation of the greatest witch hunt in the history of politics. Take a look.
As far as this is concerned, we want no violence, never violence. We want absolutely no violence. And on the impeachment, it's really a continuation of the greatest witch hunt in the history of politics. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. This impeachment is causing tremendous anger, and you're doing it, and it's really a terrible thing that they're doing.
President Donald Trump took to the stage today after days of refraining from public appearance. The site he chose, the U.S.-Mexico border near Alamo, Texas. Our Texas Bureau Chief, Jane Kathleen Gregorio, has the report. Jane?
Thank you, Philip, and howdy from the Lone Star State. A day before the U.S. House of Representatives is set to make President Donald Trump the first president in U.S. history impeached for a second time, he traveled to Alamo, Texas, and made his first public appearance since his supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. President Trump inspected the wall erected at the U.S.-Mexico border near Alamo. This is not the same Alamo, however, as the famous fortress in another part of Texas. Speaking with a border wall as his background, he called for healing, peace, and calm. Let's take a look.
Now is the time for our nation to heal, and it's time for peace and for calm, respect for law enforcement, and the great people within law enforcement.
He also made mention of the demonstrations that turned violent at the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday, January 6th.
Millions of our citizens watched on Wednesday as a mob stormed the Capitol and trashed the halls of government. As I have consistently said throughout my administration, we believe in respecting America's history and traditions, not tearing them down. We believe in the rule of law, not in violence or rioting. Because of
In the same speech, however, he claimed that free speech is under assault and made a threat to the incoming administration of Joe Biden.
Before we begin, I'd like to say that free speech is under assault like never before. The 25th Amendment is of zero risk to me, but will come back to haunt Joe Biden and the Biden administration. As the expression goes, be careful what you wish for.
Despite people from government and private sector calling upon Trump to step down and take responsibility for the Capitol unrest, his voter base remains solid. With a chance of 4 more years, Trump supporters still remain hopeful that the president will be able to remain in office. In Corpus Christi, Texas, I'm Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Philip.
Thanks, Jane. Now, when you hear President Trump was visiting Alamo, Texas, the image in many people's mind is the Alamo Monument itself. You know, remember the Alamo. How far is that actually is the Alamo from Alamo, Texas?
Well, interesting you should note that, Philip, because yes, that's true. The Alamo does invoke images of that famous monument that was a historical Spanish mission that was used as a fortress during the Battle of the Alamo in 1836. And now it's a monument and museum honoring the people who gave their lives for Texas to be what it is today. Now, but President Trump didn't go to the Alamo. He went to Alamo, Texas, which is 239.1 miles to be exact from San Antonio, where the Alamo Monument is located. And in fact, Alamo, Texas is inside what is called the Rio Grande Valley on the border of U.S. and Mexico, near where the border wall stands. Philip?
Thanks, Jane. And, you know, I'm just curious, you know, there's only so many days left in President Trump's administration. You know, we have the inauguration coming up. Is there any reaction from Texans of, you know, Trump using one of his last few travel days, if you will, to come visit the state and view the border wall there. Is there any reaction from the community?
Well, we have some mixed reactions because we have many people here who are Democratic, and while other people really stand by their Republican views. We actually, from the people that I had spoken with, for example, I was talking with a waiter friend I had met earlier this week, Mike, and he was actually excited to discover that President Trump visited one of the small towns in Texas, which is rarely visited by major political or government leaders. So the fact that he had actually visited this area in what we call the Rio Grande Valley, Alamo, Texas, he felt honored that President Trump actually paid a visit there. So that is one of the reactions that I had personally witnessed. Philip?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jane, for your report. We'll hope that you'll stay with us for our discussion later on our favorite hobbies. Now, in other news, French Health Minister Olivier Véran says, according to the preliminary results of a survey conducted over 2 days last week, the English variant, presumably more contagious, accounts for about 1% of COVID-19 tests in France. Let's take a look.
Il disait hier qu'il trouve à peu près 1% de variants d'origine anglaise parmi les PCR positives en France, avec une disparité territoriale, une dispersion territoriale qui fait qu'il n'y a pas de région qui concentrerait de nombreux cas. C'est très intéressant, très utile, ça permet de surveiller s'il y a une croissance de ce variant et de vérifier s'il devait apparaître des clusters.
Now, for today's COVID-19 numbers. According to the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University and Medicine, as of 6 p.m. Eastern Time today, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is now more than 90,045,000. The top three on the list of countries with recorded cases: the U.S. with more than 22,281,000, India with more than 10,450,000, and Brazil with more than 8,075,000. Sadly, this virus has now already claimed more than 1,931,000 lives worldwide. The top three countries with the most number of COVID-19 related deaths are the same: the U.S. with more than 373,000, Brazil more than 202,000, and India with more than 150,000. Up next, we'll have reports from Edmonton, Alberta, Alexandria, Virginia, and Union Township, New Jersey. Eagle News America continues. Stay with us.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced, not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Aguila Pilipinas, a 1-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Aguila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Aguila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to our health outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Kumanta, sumaya tayong lahat. Saya-saya.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Philip Toledo in Atlanta. Addressing record high numbers of COVID-19 infections, the province of Ontario, the largest in Canada, will go into a stay-at-home order. Bureau Chief Thomas Likeness joins us tonight with the details. Thomas.
Thank you, Philip. We told you a couple of days ago that the COVID-19 virus had Canada's largest province, which is Ontario, backed into a corner. Case counts are at record levels. Deaths are at record levels. There was a promise on Sunday from the Premier that new restrictions will be coming in, and Premier Doug Ford made good on that promise today.
Effective immediately, Ontario is declaring a state of emergency. We expect this to remain in place for at least 28 days. Further, I'm issuing a stay-at-home order effective Thursday at 12:01 a.m. Under this order, everyone must stay home and only go out for essential trips to pick up groceries or go to medical appointments.
Ford says he doesn't take these measures lightly, but he adds people must stay home to save lives. He says the order is going to be backed up with increased enforcement.
And local police, bylaw officers, workplace inspectors will enforce these new measures. Under the declaration, they will have powers to disperse people and to issue tickets to bad actors. Bad actors who are caught, they will get fined.
Ford was critical of big box stores and what he calls the crazy lineups that he sees outside of these establishments.
I'm going to come down on them like an 800-pound gorilla. If they aren't following the protocols, they aren't following the guidelines, if they don't have 50% only in the stores, there's going to be consequences for them. And I'm not going to mess around with these big box stores.
Now, with the situation as bad as it is, some people say the government should have brought in a curfew like was done in neighboring Quebec, but Ford says he's against that. He suggests that's overkill. Why is that, Mr. Premier?
I've ever believed in, is having a curfew that when you pull out of your driveway after 8 o'clock, the police are chasing down the street. I just do not believe in that.
Ford says a curfew would send a message that the government has lost trust in the people, and he says that's something he just doesn't want to say to people. For now, the Ontario government is saying the less a person is out, the less chance they have of transmitting the virus. So as we all try to stay safe, I wish you all good health. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Philip.
Thanks, Thomas. It was interesting when he was talking about, I think he said, he's going to be like an 800-pound gorilla with those box stores. That sounds very restrictive to me. How restrictive is this stay-at-home order?
There's a lot of things. Stores have to close by 7:30, so 8 o'clock, I guess it is, so that we don't have kind of all-night shopping. In addition, the Premier says schools will be closed in 5 regions of the provinces. All businesses are told to ensure that any employee that can work from home, they should do so. Outdoor gatherings restricted to 5 people or less, and that's consistent with the first wave lockdown rules. Again, masks, mandatory indoors at open businesses, organizations. Masks also being recommended outdoors where you can't physical distance. You can't get that 2 meters apart. Non-essential construction, that's further restricted, including below-grade construction, so you can't be digging basements, I should say. So quite a few restrictions brought in. Philip?
Thanks, Thomas. And, a lot of this is aimed at, reducing the strain on, the healthcare system. How is the healthcare system there in Ontario coping?
they're managing, but barely. Now, there's outbreaks in almost 40% of the long-term care homes in the province. That's not a good situation. 25% of the hospitals no longer have an ICU bed. Another 25% only have 1 or 2 beds left in intensive care. The situation is province-wide. It's not just in Toronto or Ottawa, the kind of the big centers where there's a lot of cases. This is province-wide. In the province, just over 1,700 people are being treated in hospital for COVID. Of those, more than 260 are in intensive care, and most of them are on ventilators. Public health officials say unless people reduce contact with others, deaths are going to exceed the first wave totals. Another thing they're saying, if we don't get this under control in the next 10 days, by February, the health care system faces collapse. We could be in a situation like California in Ontario. Philip?
Thanks, Thomas. And before I let you go, how far are you from, I know you're in Edmonton, how far are you from, all of this happening in Ontario, and what's the reaction of the community there? Are they, are they anticipating that similar orders might be issued where you live?
Okay, we're about 5 hours by air from Toronto. It's Canada's a big country. We've got 5 time zones, so we're about 5 hours by air. Here in Alberta, we're number 3 in terms of COVID case outbreaks. We've got essentially a lockdown here, not quite as strict, but there are people here who say we should be locking down even more seriously. Let's bring it under control now, because it's not helping the economy to ease up, then lock down again, ease up, lock down. There are so many small businesses teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. They're just saying, let's get this over with. If we have to stay locked down a little bit longer, that's fine. But this on and off is just a disaster for business people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Thomas, so much for your report. You stay safe, and we'll see you here at the end of the show.
You too, Philip. Take care, and we'll talk to you again.
Thanks, Thomas. Virginia takes new actions with the COVID-19 vaccination plan as coronavirus cases in the state, just like in Ontario, are reaching a new high. In Alexandria, EJ Gonzalez has the report. EJ.
Thanks, Philip. Yeah, the 7-day moving average for positive cases in Northern Virginia has reached a new peak, according to the Virginia Department of Health. For 6 consecutive days, this region has recorded more than 1,000 cases each day, including Monday and Sunday, where they averaged more than 1,250 new positive cases. All in all, the state of Virginia has topped the 407,000 mark for total COVID cases and has recorded more than 5,400 deaths. Even the NBA home team here, the Washington Wizards, have canceled their practice today. 2 Wizards players had to undergo the NBA's health and safety protocols. Earlier today, it was released that those 2 players are Rui Hachimura and Mo Wagner. It is not specified whether or not these players have tested positive for the virus, but the practice was canceled, quote, out of an abundance of caution. This news came just this morning after the Washington Wizards defeated the Phoenix Suns last night here at home. The NBA announced that there are now at least 36 players in the NBA entering Tuesday who are dealing with some sort of virus-related issue. Now, here in Virginia, Governor Ralph Northam announced new actions that will help speed up the pace of vaccinations throughout the state as safely and effectively as possible. The first goal of the governor is to vaccinate 25,000 Virginians a day once supplies allow it. They will also follow a use it or lose it model, where medical facilities must use their supplies as soon as possible, or they risk receiving reduced allotments in the future. The governor has also expanded the priority groups, so where teachers K through 12 and childcare workers would be among the next priority group after healthcare personnel and long-term care facilities. In the meantime, the Virginia Department of Health, they're developing a portal online to help Virginians on how to register for vaccinations. Governor Northam is eager to get everyone vaccinated, as he said that this is the best way to end the pandemic, rebuild our economy, and move our Commonwealth forward. In Alexandria, Virginia, EJ Gonzalez, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Philip.
Thanks, EJ, and thank you for that update on the COVID vaccine distribution there in Virginia. I'm just curious, as it's starting to expand, are you hearing anything from the community, whether it be your friends or families, or like Jane Kathleen, just people that you meet in the restaurant, about whether or not they're going to take advantage and get the vaccine?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my sister, she's a teacher, but she's in Georgia. She just said that she's going to be getting the vaccine very soon, actually. So it's good to hear that there are a lot of healthcare workers and long-term care facility workers who are already getting that vaccination. Actually, my father-in-law, he already got his vaccination as well, and he seemed very happy to have it. He doesn't see like any type of like drawbacks or anything that they're saying. So he was actually asking us when are we going to be getting the vaccination. And of course, supplies are very limited right now, but hopefully soon when they become readily available, and once we see more people getting the vaccination and really portraying that they think that it's a good idea, then we'd probably consider getting that once it becomes readily available.
Absolutely. Now, also, just like you mentioned in there, it's hard to hear that there's a lot of NBA players that are getting hit with this virus now, too. And, we know that you're an active sports correspondent for EBC Sports International. Are there any updates with what the NBA is going to do to combat these COVID outbreaks?
Yeah. So, actually, there was some new updates to the health and safety protocols for the NBA. That was released just hours ago. There were a total of 4 NBA games last week that were postponed because of a coronavirus-related issue. And we just learned that the home team here in Washington, the Washington Wizards, they received word that their game tomorrow is going to be canceled because they don't even have enough eligible players. So it's crazy. It's getting to that point where a lot of teams are seeing a lot more outbreaks in viruses, and now they don't even have enough eligible players to play. So the NBA, they're tightening up on their restrictions. For the next 2 weeks, the players and the staff, they're required to remain in their own homes when they're not on the road. The only exception is when they have practice or they want to exercise outside or perform essential activities like going to the grocery store. But if they're on the road, they can't leave their hotel, they can't interact with non-team personnel, and they've actually limited player-to-player interactions, meaning they can't handshake each other anymore or dap each other up is what we call it. But they're actually limited now to just elbow and fist bumps. That's actually breaking news. It's crazy that now the way they interact with players on the court is changing. That's just a few of the new changes, but we can really see that the NBA, just like the entire country, is really ramping up their efforts to combat the virus as well.
Absolutely, EJ. It's interesting, you can take any subset or microcosm of, the country now, whether it be the NBA or a school or businesses or whatever, and you see everybody experiencing, this spike in cases. And so it's just a reminder for everybody, no matter what you do, to be really careful. Thanks so much, EJ, for your report. We'll catch up with you here at the end of the episode.
Thanks, Philip.
New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy delivered his State of the State address, and Bureau Chief Carlo Valdez shares with us some highlights of the speech. Carlo?
Thanks, Philip. In a pre-recorded video which was shared on his social media outlets, Governor Murphy delivered the State of the State address from the capital of the state, Trenton, New Jersey. Here's a short excerpt from the governor.
My fellow New Jerseyans, I don't need to tell you these are different times, so this is a different kind of speech. Instead of delivering this address in a crowded state house, I'm standing in an empty theater. Yet for all the changes, the most important things remain constant. Our values, our priorities, our vision, and that we are all New Jerseyans. The stories we just heard have echoed across our state for the better part of the past year. They are stories that show our grit and reveal our heart. They echo the pain of 2020, and they preview the hope of 2021. They are tied with a common thread, that we are all in this together. Most of all, these New Jerseyans reflect the state of our state. Although deeply wounded, we enter 2021 tougher than ever, wiser than before, and ready to move forward together. And in typical Jersey style, we are leveling with each other and making sure that no one is left behind. We are facing this pandemic not with a dismissive wave or partisan pandering, but with a full-scale counterattack. We are making the fight against COVID-19 one that engages every New Jerseyan. Over these 3 years, we have laid a foundation to support a stronger and fairer New Jersey that works for every family. These were the right things to do before the pandemic, and they turned out to be some of the best decisions to get us through the pandemic. Raising the minimum wage, passing earned sick leave, and expanding paid family and medical leave. Making those at the very top pay their fair share with a millionaire's tax, while at the same time cutting taxes for working families with either a larger earned income tax credit or a direct rebate or both. Protecting health care from attacks from Washington and reducing premiums for hundreds of thousands of New Jerseyans. Expanding pre-K education, making record investments in public education, while at the same time stabilizing property taxes. Making community college tuition free for thousands of New Jerseyans and expanding job training programs. These are real accomplishments that help people across our state.
Along with the State of the State address, he added of the increase of the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which will allow those who aspire to enter the middle class to do so. Tax cuts for the working families, tuition-free community college, building clean energy, and solidifying New Jersey's bridge and tunnel infrastructure, which were also some of the key points mentioned in his address. And as for coronavirus stats and numbers, New Jersey reports of 4,219 new positive COVID-19 PCR tests, pushing the total to 537,115. Sadly, New Jersey is reporting 108 new COVID-19 deaths, pushing the total to 17,980 lives lost. In Union Township, New Jersey, Carlo Valdez, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Philip.
Still to come, stories from our correspondents in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, North Hills, and Sacramento, California. You're watching Eagle News America. Stay with us.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
It's really PM is the key dahil tuwing 8 PM, Monday to Friday, iain na ang kantahan at kainang rolled into one. Abangan sina JC Parker at Marcelito Pomoy because it's time to sing, it's time to eat. Sa It's Singing Time! Dito lang yan sa Net 25.
It's Singing Time!
Balang araw, magkikita-kita tayo! At sinisiguro ko sa inyo, yung inuupuan nyo, mauupuan ko din! O, diba remember nung nakaraang linggo? Ayaw nila sa aking tatlo, di kinausap ko nga yung may-ari.
Panibagong set of contenders ang sasabak sa hamon ng TNG stage for a once-in-a-lifetime chance to reach their dreams. Dito lang yan sa Taakisan ng Galing Part 2 Dance Edition.
Wind your body, wiggle your belly.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net 25.
Welcome back. You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Philip Toledo in Atlanta. Several stories tonight from Louisiana. The state's health department reports an alarming number of COVID-19 cases since the pandemic began. Plus, for a feel-good story, the recent snowfall has given state parks there a winter wonderland treat. In Baton Rouge, Nicole Adeline Padilla files this report. Nicole?
Thank you, Philip, and hello from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. On Friday, January 8th, the Louisiana Department of Health reported 105 COVID deaths. This is the second highest daily death count since the start of the pandemic. The highest number of deaths Louisiana has reported in a day was 129 deaths on April 14, 2020. As a response to the COVID-19 deaths, Governor Edwards said, "We mourn the loss of 7,833 Louisianans to this illness. These are people's children and parents and friends and co-workers. They are our neighbors. They are our sisters and brothers. During this pandemic, each and every choice we make can have catastrophic impacts on our health and the health of those around us. As of today, nearly 100,000 doses of the COVID vaccine have been administered in Louisiana, which is good news, but the vaccine will not stop this current surge. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but it will not matter if we do not get there." With the recent snow that impacted parts of Louisiana this week, Louisiana State Parks posted photos on its social media Monday, encouraging visitors to check out the Winter Wonderland at Lake D'Arbonne State Park, as well as other parks with scenic winter views like Lake Bistineau State Park, Lake Claiborne State Park, Kemenhot State Park, Poverty Point Reservoir State Park, North Toledo Bend State Park, Jimmy Davis State Park, and Lake Bruin State Park. For more information, visit lastateparks.com. Please stay safe, Louisianans. I hope you are doing well there, Philip. In Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I am Nicole Padilla. Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Philip.
California continues its stay-at-home order in several regions as the state reaches 30,000 in COVID-19 related deaths. In Sacramento, Bureau Chief Angel Membrere files this report. Angel?
Thank you. The regional stay-at-home order remains in effect for the majority of California. Of the 5 regions that were placed on the stay-at-home order, 4 remain. Here is a reminder from CHHS Secretary Dr. Mark Galley on how a region may be removed from the list, as well as what information is constantly being considered. Let's listen.
We've been many weeks now since the regional stay-at-home order was put into place. I'll remind you that the order required that regions, we had 5 of them, stay in the regional stay-at-home order for at least 3 weeks, and that the trigger to come into the regional stay-at-home order was when you had lower than 15% available ICU capacity. Of the 5 regions in the state, 4, the ones you see here, the Bay Area, Greater Sacramento, San Joaquin, and Southern California, were all put under the stay-at-home order, the regional stay-at-home order, that we committed to, after 3 weeks, to begin running projections to see where your ICU capacity in one of those regions 4 weeks out. So not today, running today's calculations, but what do the ICUs look like in 4 weeks? Because we know today's cases, today's sort of transmission environment is going to end up in the hospitals in a few weeks, about 4 weeks out. So looking at that projection to determine at what point do any one of these regions come out of the regional stay-at-home order. Currently, all 4 regions are remaining under the stay-at-home order, but we are actively calculating some of the information from the last 24 hours and maybe updating you in the next hours, and certainly by tomorrow if any one of these regions does indeed emerge out of that regional stay-at-home order.
Now, despite the restrictions that were put in place several months ago to slow the spread of COVID-19, California's blueprint for safely reopening, and the recent news of the vaccines rolling out, California has reached an unfortunate milestone of 30,000 deaths due to COVID-19 since the beginning of this pandemic. Dr. Mark Galley discusses more on this.
I want to just mention an important milestone that is a sad milestone that the state has reached. And despite some of the early indications of positive news, we know that death is the lagging indicator with COVID. It's one of the last things that we see rise. And we have seen over the past week and a half, high numbers of deaths day over day. And today we do cross 30,000 deaths since the beginning of the pandemic as a result of COVID. An important and sad milestone. I want to recognize all of the families and communities that have been impacted by those deaths. We continue to work hard to save lives, to lead by saving lives, to make decisions both on how we handle our blueprint for reopening, how we manage surge and deploying resources, and again, as we get to vaccines, focused on saving lives. But a never easy to forget reminder are those death numbers of how serious this disease is, how serious the pandemic is, and how the responsibility each of us holds is so important to really bend that curve and bring this pandemic to an end in California.
In Sacramento, California, Angel Membrari, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Going green, the city of Los Angeles surpasses its goal of putting up electric vehicle charging sites. What was the goal and what does that even mean? In North Hills, California, Eagle News correspondent Alex Skillman has the details. Alec?
Thank you, Phil. Going green isn't a far-off dream in Los Angeles. The city, which aimed to provide 10,000 electric vehicle charging stations, surpassed its own goal by establishing over 11,000 EV charging sites an entire 2 years earlier than expected. And while this ambitious undertaking has been convincingly realized, LA isn't done yet. Finishing ahead of its initial timetable, city officials can now turn their attention to 2 more benchmark projects on their to-do list. The first is to ensure that by the year 2025, 25,000 commercial charging stations will become available for electric vehicle drivers. And the second objective is up the number to 28,000 by the year 2028. And yes, the 25 by 25 and the 28 by 28 promotions were probably made on purpose to make it easier for folks to remember. Now, there's another pair of initiatives that Los Angeles is looking to accomplish in the further future. And while these projects don't carry memorable catchphrases, their impact on the health of the residents is potentially a game changer. Called the LA Green New Deal, this venture envisions public transportation to be comprised of 100% electric city and transit lines by 2028. And by 2036, Los Angeles is pushing to have 80% of all vehicles on the road to be electric and zero emission. But for now, Angelinos can marvel at the current 11,045 charging stations, 10,779 of which are classified as level 2 commercial stations, and 266 are designated as DC fast chargers, or DCFC, for which are meant for vehicles requiring medium to heavy duty recharging, like electric buses. However, DCFC use on light duty vehicles is not out of the question, though charging will be kept to about 80%. But since this process only takes about 30 minutes, the trade-off may well be worth it. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti has led a vigorous campaign to transform transportation in LA, and while the road ahead is long, the fact that Los Angeles has more charging stations than any other city in the United States brings hope that zero-emission future is possible. In North Hills, California, Alex Gilman, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Philip.
Thanks, Alec, for that interesting report. Are there any incentives regarding this project?
Well, Philip, what might also be worthwhile are the more than 8,000 rebates, over 60% of which were awarded to multi-unit dwellings, that the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power have given out this month alone as part of their commercial EV charging station rebate program. This program was enacted as a way to cover some of the expenses associated with equipment at electric vehicle stations. Presently, a $4,000 rebate for every level 2 charging station is available, an amount which can go up to as much as $5,000 if the station is in a disadvantaged community. DC fast chargers can qualify for up to $75,000 and $125,000 for each station that can charge medium and heavy-duty electric vehicles. Mayor Garcetti has directed the LADWP to look into raising rebates for qualifying customers who buy and use used electric vehicles. The current rebate program of the LADWP offers up to $1,500 that customers can use when purchasing a used electric vehicle or plug-in hybrid vehicle. Philip?
Thanks, Alec. And it was interesting, the quote you had there of 80%, the goal is 80% of electric or zero-emission vehicles on the roads by 2036. What do you think? Are you going to go out and be in an electric vehicle by that time?
I really don't know, Philip. I really haven't thought ahead. Even just purchasing an electrical vehicle, I'm not really sure.
Absolutely. Well, good thing you have a few years to ponder and maybe save up. I know some of them, especially some of the trendier brands, they get a little bit expensive. Thanks, Alec. Now, up next, we'll have EBC Sports and our virtual roundtable discussion about National Hobby Month, what we do to indulge in our favorite pastimes. You're watching Eagle News America. Stay with us.
It's time to take one step further and face the impossible. Time to search the unknown and fight for the truth. Time to overcome boundaries and connect the world. It's time for DW News.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Seahawks fans, this NFL season might have come up a bit short. Seattle basketball fans, however, might soon have cause for celebration. In Seattle, Michael Hudson has the details. Mike?
Hey, thanks a lot.
I have some exciting news to share, and especially for those NBA fans of the Seattle Supersonics. So Mayor Jenny Durkin recently met with NBA Commissioner Adam Silver this past week, and she stated that she left the meeting feeling pretty optimistic about the idea of the Supersonics returning back to Seattle. Now, I don't want to get you too excited because there are still a lot of steps that need to come together, but it's definitely some amazing news to hold on to because Seattle hasn't had an NBA team since the 2007 season. And I quote, "It is very good news for the city of Seattle that they are thinking of an expansion." And I was honest with him. He knows Seattle wants to be at the front of the line, where they should be, but we will be respecting them as they move forward to their ownership because the owners, has to approve it. And I end quote. Silver has wanted to expand the NBA, but due to the pandemic, those plans have been put on hold temporarily. The last time the NBA had an expansion team was in 2002 when the Charlotte Bobcats were formed. I can already tell you that ever since the Sonics left the city of Seattle and became the OKC Thunder, many NBA fans have not recovered, including me. But with the brand new NHL and WNBA arena being built and just the basketball history in the city in general, this will definitely help in bringing the team back. Reporting from Seattle, I'm Michael Hudson, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you.
January is National Hobby Month. So tonight, for our virtual roundtable discussion, we're going to talk about what's a good reason to escape the chaos happening around us, or what's a better reason than to indulge in one of our favorite pastimes or one of our hobbies. Why don't we start all the way up north with our good friend Thomas Likeness in Edmonton. Thomas, what is your favorite pastime that helps you escape from the chaos happening around us?
This is hard. I don't think I ever escaped. I was one of those rare people whose career was also his hobby. So, I'm an avid reader, a political groupie. I love following current events. So, I mean, this is great right now. But what can I say? I also like to play around with multimedia, video editing, things like that. But really, I've got to say, just following current events. I'd even watch an election for dog catcher if that's all there was to follow.
Absolutely. You never know that there could be a dog catcher, a seat open somewhere. So I'm sure if there will, you'll let us know, right, Tom?
I'll cover it for you.
Absolutely. Jane, how about there in Corpus Christi? What is your favorite pastime?
Well, Philip, that's hard to say because I have many favorite pastimes. But, a couple would be reading a lot. Like Thomas, I love to read. I'm an avid audiobook reader. And I'm a firm believer in art therapy. I love to paint and draw. And I love to play violin sometimes. In fact, I have a little something dedicated to all my fellow EBC correspondents here. I've been practicing it during the break time. Just a little hobby violin for my fellow correspondents. Thank you.
I hope that they recorded that so that way we could have that as the outro to our show today. Or maybe you can just take us home.
That's a rough draft, but thank you.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing the final product. EJ, how about you? What is your hobby that helps you relax or escape from what's going on?
I wish I was as talented as Jane. Can you teach me that on a guitar? Maybe I do like to play guitar from time to time actually. But aside from sports, basketball, one of the main sports that I've been playing, especially during the time of pandemic, is actually golf. It's a lot safer to be outdoors than it is to be stuck indoors. And they were saying that that's one of the lowest risk sports to play right now for during this time of pandemic. You're outdoors, and it's a frustrating sport, but it's also very stress relieving because you get to be outside, get some good fresh air. Of course, still maintain that distance, but definitely gets your mind thinking of other things because every shot or every approach is something to think about in the game of golf. So definitely gets your mind working and also good exercise as well.
Absolutely, and at least in my experience, I think golf is a good opportunity to practice your conflict management, especially when, you're taking a little bit extra time to complete the hole. There's a line of people behind you, or at least that's what happened the one time that I played golf. Right. Alec, how about you? What's your pastime that helps you escape?
Well, for me, Philip, I tend to just play a lot of video games. It helps pass the time, and especially playing with friends since you can't see them anymore because of quarantine. But it's really good to hear them, like their voices, especially online. Thankfully, the technology, we can just video chat or like just something like that. And then I also have my Nintendo Switch to pass the time. It's really fun. I really wish I had that game where you can just build your own world so you can just lose yourself in that. But for now, it's mostly been playing on my computer and with friends just to pass the time. It's really fun. I miss them so much. Goodness. Well, back to you.
That's a good point, Alec. A lot of our hobbies involve other people, and it's great that you have one that still allows you, even if you're not able to. I remember when I was younger, having LAN parties and a bunch of people in a house, playing games together. But at least you're still able to connect, because that's really important. Now, on my part, not a whole lot of time for hobbies, but one thing that I do really love to do is to cook and try new recipes, especially during this pandemic when we're spending more time at home. I found myself getting a little bit more adventurous, and I've almost perfected my pancake recipe. And then for New Year's Eve, my family, I made a prime rib roast, which I had never done before. So I don't know if anyone out there likes red meat, but it was really delicious and it was exciting. So that's just on my part. But before we go, I want to say thank you, to all of our correspondents for sharing their thoughts, both in the reports as well as in our virtual roundtable tonight. And also, before we end our program, we always salute our healthcare workers, first responders, and essential workers. Thank you so much for all that you do for all of us out there on the front line. Let's give them a round of applause. We truly appreciate you. We also appreciate you, our viewers, for joining us tonight on this episode of Eagle News America. Wherever you are, we hope that you are staying safe and you're staying well. I'm Philip Toledo. We live in interesting times.